I see the public view too. So like, all right. So it looks like we are live. There's probably a bit of a delay for the live stream people, but live stream people, when you could see me and Zach, please let me know. Uh, Welcome to the first Gutenberg live Q&A that is
Woohoo!
happening between me and Zach Gordon. And I don't know if you can actually see Zach. I suspect if I present him to everybody, you will
Hey,
maybe
everybody.
see,
Howdy.
yeah, you will see him. I don't know if you could still hear me. This is our first Hangouts on air and it's not behaving. Uh,
And
so
appropriate. Blocks are new. Live hangouts with us are new. It's
yeah, exactly. So, uh, when you guys talk, it switches. All right, cool. So I'm gonna stop presenting Zach right now. All right, cool. So you could probably see and hear me now again. So, um, awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us for this live Q&A. What's kind of gonna happen is Zach and I both have Oh, okay. Cool. So Zach, you were just kind of totally on camera there for a minute while I was talking, because again, I don't really know how this works. So everybody should definitely still see me now. Thanks again for joining us. This is the first live Q&A we're doing. Both Zach and I have courses based on Gutenberg. Zach's is a development course. Mine is a user course. So we figured every couple of weeks until Gutenberg drops, maybe, we would answer questions that people have about Gutenberg. So, Zach, since people can only see one of us at a time, why don't you let me know in the chat if you want to say something? Otherwise, we'll get right into the questions. And I should say, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe Casabona. I am a front-end developer and an educator. You can find my stuff over on creatorcourses.com. I will switch it over to Zach so he can kind of introduce himself, though I suspect he is a man who needs no introduction.
Howdy, y'all. Zach Gordon. A lot of my work involved with this is WordPress education, and it's taken more of a development and JavaScript turn, which is not surprising in the last couple of years. And like Joe, I also just did a Gutenberg course. Mine is more the developer focus. So that's why I'm here, and I'm excited to try to hope to answer any questions that folks have that are trying to get into developing with this.
Awesome. So cool. So the first question that we have comes from we'll do the chat first since the people are here. Elliot Richmond asks, what will the impact on the UI in the backend for existing metadata fields and UIs for WooCommerce or ACF? So I think the main question here is, how will metadata and extra fields be impacted on the back end with Gutenberg? Right now, there's like this extra area in Gutenberg called like extra settings, I believe is what it's called the last time I checked, or extended settings. And that's where you'll find probably a majority of the important things like meta fields added by the theme and things like that. For more advanced stuff like ACF or WooCommerce, I know that they're working on their own implementations. I know as recently as yesterday, there was a pretty nifty new UI added for the meta fields added to the bottom of the block kind of editor. So for really in-depth plugins, it's probably going to take an effort on the plugin developer or the theme developer to make it work properly in Gutenberg. There's the extended settings. Zach, maybe you can kind of talk more to the like developer side, like what technically needs to happen for those things to kind of make sense in Gutenberg.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think you gave a really good answer to that. So from a technical perspective, meta boxes and things like that are going to be thrown, I believe, into an iframe at the bottom of the page. And some of the technical difficulties that you're going to have with those are if you're using ACF as a current R and you try to implement them in that technical situation at the bottom of the page, right? So all these meta boxes are going to go down there by default. You will encounter some JavaScript incompatibility issues and some potential errors there. I ran through like ACF, all their common fields that I usually use, and some of the more advanced ones I did notice some bugginess with. But on that regard, it's too early to tell right now what's going to happen with ACF, because I know that all of these folks are busy working on solutions. So you may even have all your data automatically imported into blocks and look like a perfect UI and not have to worry about it, because it's technically possible to save block data into a meta field. So we don't have to have everything by default going down there, and you can programmatically transition things into blocks. So we'll see where that goes. Now, WooCommerce is a different thing, right? Because they have their own edit page that is custom to how they do. So I don't know if by default, although it is a custom post type, if a plugin would necessarily have Gutenberg enforce, you could, I guess, potentially drop back. Or so I guess the short answer is I'm not super sure on what WooCommerce is going to do. I bet they're going to have some sort of solution, and I could look into that a little bit more. But whatever you would have had from WooCommerce, like a short code or something that would go into a poster page or some sort of widget that could then be imported in some way, all that's eventually going to be a block and pretty seamless with everything else.
Awesome. That is a really that's a great answer. Thank you, Zach. I know that WooCommerce like has been kind of working on their own stuff, but I haven't seen like too much of it, which is that'll probably be like its own other course, right, on how to use WooCommerce for or Gutenberg for WooCommerce.
The nice thing, I'll just throw out there, is that the automatic folks behind WooCommerce and behind developing Gutenberg are all similar teams and have overlap and stuff. So I trust that they're definitely addressing these things. But like we said, I guess we don't have too many specifics that have been shared out too much, but could probably maybe track down.
Nice, very nice. Zach, for your information, I just gave you controls. So if you want to like steal control from me to jump in, you could totally do that. I will like I think I'll see when you
I
take
control the situation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I think people are only seeing like one side of our conversation right now, which is me talking to a crazy person. We got a question. We've gotten a couple of questions about will Gutenberg replace page builders, and we got another one. What obstacles could there be for page builders and layouts with Gutenberg? Site origin was mentioned. I know I'm a big fan of Beaver Builder, and the main thing that I've been saying of Gutenberg and page builders is that Gutenberg, at least the way it will be when 5.0 comes out, is not a page builder. It is I think the terminology that the Gutenberg team, that the WordPress team is using, is rich page layout or rich layout creator. The main difference is that you can't create. So like with, I haven't used Site Origin, but I do use Beaver Builder, and with Beaver Builder you can create these discrete rows and columns within those rows. You can't do that with Gutenberg today. I heard columns might be coming, but you know, you're still contained to whatever the content does, and you're still kind of at the mercy of the theme. With page builders, they give you a bit more control, right? They strip out a lot of things. They give you like these kind of sometimes they're styled rows and columns that you can create. The main goal, I believe, of Gutenberg today is to just punch up the content that you're writing in blog posts and pages, right? You can like add like like the text box, I think you can like add a background color and stuff like that. You have like the cover image block, which allows you to do this kind of cool parallaxy thing. But you know, you cannot create specific rows or specific columns or rows that each have their own styles, whereas page builders can definitely do that. So I would say that the way that I know Beaver Builder works is it completely replaces the current editor. I suspect it will be like that once Gutenberg drops as well. So like you won't even see the WordPress editor when you're using Beaver Builder. I'm sorry I can't speak to like Site Origin or anything like that, but I suspect that whatever editor you see for the full page builder, which gives you like the front end WYSIWYG editor today, is what you will see when 5.0 comes out.
Nice. I would love to jump in on that there. So to add, maybe contradict, and somewhat definitely predict where this will go. Like you said, first of all, to identify that there are page builders that exist like Site Origin within the normal edit experience, right? So it has the ability to create rows and change their sizes and things like that and add in a bunch of widgets, and it comes with its own. That I actually imagine, maybe not at first, like Joe said, but that is probably going to be completely transformed into blocks as best as it can. Now, nested blocks, which is what we're referring to as columns. So in Gutenberg, there's already a widget, like a text column widget, where if you're just putting in text, it could kind of columnize. But to actually have distinct columns and do things with it, that's what's going to be referred to as nested blocks. So you can put blocks within blocks and kind of set them up that way. So that is coming. It's very close. You know, it's being worked on. I don't know if it's a 5.0 release, but I'm kind of seeing this in as a, you know, get there when it does. And I know that it is very close to being released. I know in the update of my course, at some point, I think that I'll be covering it, which I think means that it'll be before that this hits core. So I believe that that will eventually be in that first release. I'm not 100% sure, but from watching the development, I think that that is the case. So that said, you then have the ability to, like Joe said, maybe do a lot of columns and different things, especially as widgets become to be able to be added as blocks themselves. So you could basically kind of stack up however you want. Now, that said, you're going to be completely within the content area, right? So where you see the underscore content excerpt out on the page, that's where all your blocks are going to show up. So in your theme, if the content has a header and a sidebar and a footer around it, then all of the content with all the layers and things that you build are going to be right within that. So if you have a full page layout, you can maybe do a little bit more. But beyond that, there are site builders, which is not a page builder plugin. It can actually let you design and override the entire template that you're using. And so I'm a big fan of Thrive Architect is what it's called. It used to be Thrive Builder, Thrive Architect. It's one of these, you hit edit and Thrive and it opens up a whole new tab and it's a whole different experience. And you could actually hijack, create your own footer, sidebar, header, all of that stuff separately. So those will probably, like Joe said, continue to exist in their own format. Although I have a hypothesis, I haven't confirmed this, but if I were a page builder like Beaver Builder, I would probably also, because it's not too maybe difficult, to be able to have a lot of your stuff available within blocks. So maybe you can do a little bit more in there, but there is kind of this divide. Oh, this is the last thing I'll say here is that if you're using a complete site builder, it's going to override what the content is. So anything that you have in blocks normally will not show up there. So it is still maybe going to be one or another, although I imagine with, like Joe said, the ability to really do columns well and design reusable blocks, which is possible, that maybe we'll see everything evolve inside of Gutenberg. Will that be right away? I don't know that they drop all that code base of all the stuff that they've done building front-end editors, because again, Gutenberg isn't a front-end editor, right? So if you have that extra experience, that's also worth maybe hopping out of the block editor experience for now and using one of those. And I know that Joe and I are both fans of page builders when they have their time and place. So it's definitely something that we're thinking of as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of really good points there, right? So it's kind of remains to be seen what's going to happen. I'm sure each page builder will, you know, treat Gutenberg as kind of their own. And I've seen some page builders already announce, I forget which one, but like it kind of announced that it was going away already. I can't see that happening with like Site Origin or Beaver Builder or anything like that.
No, not a
Um, yeah. The next question we have is uh, one that we got via email. It is pretty developery, so I will hand it over to Zach for this one completely. So the question is sanitizing issue with block fields. Give at least one example. So I'm going to interpret that question as you have these block fields. How do you go about sanitizing them? Is there an issue sanitizing them? Um, why don't we generalize it a little bit? Unless Zach, you know exactly what this question is asking. How do we make sure our blocks are secure?
Okay, so let me how our blocks are secure is probably like a way bigger and maybe not as actually a question we need to really ask because it's still within the WordPress security ecosystem. But that said, the sanitization question is important. So just to kind of identify, sanitizing is when we have data entered from a form usually or coming from the user API, and before it hits the database to be saved, we run it through a series of things that prevent, like maybe in some cases we don't want actual HTML to be saved. We want to encode it into something that isn't processed as HTML but could show up if we're reading it. Or maybe we want to script out and make sure there's no JavaScript in there that's malicious, or some SQL that might be escaped, and do that. So sanitization is important. Now, when you're working with your content data, remember everything is the content. So it will be passed through WordPress's like sanitization system. But there are some times when you're tapping into data outside. Maybe you have a plugin options table, or you have some post metadata or something. Well, post metadata might not be the best example, but something that's outside of that normal process. Two things there. One is, when you're working with the attribute system, which identifies what type of content it is, you do have a little bit of, I wouldn't say real sanitization, but if you know that something is going to be a string versus HTML, you could do a little bit of light that way. But really, if you're saving data, you should be passing it through an API endpoint, most likely, since we're writing in JavaScript in the WordPress API way. And there's currently like at least 3 different libraries, maybe 4, for writing API requests with JavaScript inside of WordPress now. So you would basically write a custom endpoint, and when you send your data back, then you'd process it on the server just like you normally would. I know that they are building out helper libraries, and I haven't stayed too up to date, but I know that there are core developers. I've talked with Adam Silverstein about this, that are thinking about sanitization on the front end, but really you could still hit all the core WordPress stuff on the back end by using an API endpoint. And that's probably what I'd say is going to be your best course of reference if it's not just normal content data, in which case it'll pass through the normal processes that way, I believe.
Awesome. Man, that well, I'm gonna have to take your word for it, Zach.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
Anything
mean,
to add there, Joe?
yeah. I mean, you know, like what you said about general WordPress development makes a lot of sense. So like, I mean, you know, I can definitely speak to that. I sadly have not dove into your course yet, though, because I've been like so busy like creating and
Oh,
developing mine.
nor yours, my friend. We take a day off and just swap courses and finally watch them.
Awesome. So we've got a couple of good questions coming in here. The next one is any knowledge of when Gutenberg will be merged into Core, not as in time, but based on feedback, issues, tickets, features, etc. So, uh, in the eyes of the WordPress Open Source Foundation and the contributors, what makes Gutenberg feature complete for 5.0? Because we know that 5.0 is not going to drop until Gutenberg is ready. What makes Gutenberg ready? I know that there's a couple of features specifically that they're looking to make sure are handled before we merge and we launch 5.0. Those are the meta fields. We want a way to handle that because lose we don't want to lose major functionality, right? Moving to 5.0, that will just kind of stifle adoption. Um, uh, Page templates are not supported. The page templates meta field is not supported in Gutenberg. At least the last time I checked, I haven't updated to the latest like nightly build. But at present, you can't select a page template if you're using the Gutenberg editor. I know that's coming before launch. And deleting blocks is another big feature that deleting custom blocks, right, or reusable blocks is another feature that's going to come before Gutenberg launches. But I don't know if there is there's like 100 million branches and even more tickets in the Gutenberg GitHub repo. I don't
Oh,
know if there is a I don't know if there's a master list of these are the things that like a master list public somewhere that's like these are the things that need to happen before Gutenberg is ready. Zach, do you? you speak to that?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. And I mean,
Let me throw you on presenter.
hop
Sorry.
on. Here we go. Can we do online betting and we just donate to charity whatever we raise in terms of a release April 17th at 2:23 p.m. I don't know, December 9th. So when is like I said, they weren't looking for a date, which is cool, and you gave some good details there. I know that page templates they just stir up the documentation, and that is something that's working. I did a write up on that as well, and it's in my course. So you can do templates. I don't know what you meant about MetaBox templates, but yeah, that's one thing, and it's good. I think that the nested, like I was saying, nested blocks, I believe that that's something that they want to have, because that just opens up so much, right? Then we're not stuck in one column. And there, to the question of can you track all of this, actually I believe that this is like so open source, and this is really one of the biggest projects I've ever kind of followed from earlier on and try to track. But if you get into all the GitHub open tickets, it's not just like issues and bugs, but they're also like theoretical ones, like how should we approach this, and then they walk it out, then you can see that it's been merged. So a lot of times when I've been chatting with some of the folks, shout out to Riyadh, the core development team, who have been super helpful for, I think, both Joe and I answering questions on behalf of the students asking. So they have always pointed me to some like GitHub thread or something like that. So I believe if you really went deep enough that you could probably track most of it, but maybe finding every single thing in one place might be a little bit tricky, I think. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff we don't know exactly, or I don't really know what's going on, but may still be in there too. But you can go pretty deep in there. As for a centralized list, I'm not sure. And it's probably moving, honestly, too fast to keep like an accurate roadmap of here's everything. But I don't know the full answer, but that's what I can maybe contribute there, my thoughts.
Nice. Yeah, if you want to enter just like a world of hurt, you can get on the WordPress Slack, which is open to anybody who has a WordPress.org account. Um, and you can like go to the core Firehose channels. Like there's like a couple of channels called like Firehose, and that's like where most of the Gutenberg discussion is happening. But again, like Zach said, there's a lot going on. It feels like people are constantly working on Gutenberg, constantly testing.
Oh, they are
Um,
falling, man. Let's just give a shout out to that team, because we have, or I say we, I hopefully have not. I've tried to be supportive, but like the WordPress community has given these folks a lot of hard time. So I just want to say that they're hustling even under the hate, and it's impressive. It's not a huge team, but the people are working really hard on it. So yeah. Sorry. Side note, unrelated. Let's get back to the questions. Interrupting.
Hey, no problem. Let's see. There we go. No problem. That is a great sidebar because it feels like it's a huge team, right? There's like so much discussion going on and constant changes, which makes like our courses harder to keep updated. But like it's really good for the community. So yeah, big shout out to that team. So let's see. The next question that I've got here. Can you share any tips about mixing meta stored blocks and content stored blocks? If I had some which wanted to be secure by user or role for display, I think that's a really good question just all around, right? Because WordPress has like really strong user capabilities. There are plugins that extend that even further. So if we wanna do some of this mixed content, Zach, for reference, if you need to see it, it's like in the chat here. Um, but like, can we can we mix these pieces of content and can we kind of secure like blocks by user role?
Ooh, let me hop off mute. Okay, so I am taking a theoretical stab at this, but I'm like in the 90 percentile sure that this would work. Again, let's come back to the important point that we have a WordPress REST API really well built out with authentication, and we have client-side library like the WP API client, which is the backbone client that has authentication built into it that we could access and ping at anywhere we want in our blocks. Right, so we have that available and it's extendable. So if you want to do custom user checking and things like that, or just testing to see if they have access to something. Now what I don't no one would have to play with. If you're used to the PHP side, you could check if has user role and has these abilities and things like that. So that is something you could even maybe, I guess, ping and verify that they're logged in and that sort of thing, and the nonces are there. So I imagine that you could do something like this, and you just gave me an idea for something to check out in one of my future examples, because that's a super good question. And I imagine, again, I might not be correct completely, but I would imagine you could do this both with an entire block, but also within a block. Like if just a certain thing you didn't want somebody messing up, but they could change something else. Maybe they want to change their picture, but not, I don't know. The examples could go on, but that's my guess at this.
Nice. Nice. I suspect that depending on how fine-grained the controls are, that'll be one of the first plugins that we see.
I was going to say, somebody go build that and sell it as a premium plugin, y'all. That is smart hotcake move right there. You heard it here on the Gutenberg live show.
Yeah, somebody go out and make that plugin. And sell it. Awesome. Zach, we've got another question for you. Well, for the general development, right? And it is pre-Gutenberg. The template gives control. Post-Gutenberg, the content returns all the blocks? Question mark. Or are meta and content blocks not meant to mix in the output unless custom code brings them in some way? So, distill that into because this is a question I'm also curious about now that I see it asked, is what is the content, what does the content call return within the template? And what does it look like getting, the Gutenberg friendly layouts?
Slow clap for the good question, y'all. This is like a $10,000 Gutenberg question. So I want to dial it back to thinking about what is content and what is metadata. So if you want something to show up in your content area as what the content for the page is, no matter how that looks or how it's saved on the back end, we're going to get into the specifics of that. Like, it's the content, right? Metadata is metadata that's used, maybe like extra fields that are searchable, or maybe it's added in some small places, which we'll get into those small places. But really, it should be extra data, not what's displayed necessarily on the page. If you're displaying it on the page, then you want it there. Now, for technical reasons, it's helpful to have metadata because it could be searched and queried outside of the main content area. You could filter by it. You could do things a lot differently if you had to scrape the data out of the WordPress content area. So what I want people to think about are these two questions of like, do you want this to be on the page and visible and styled how the rest of your blocks are? If you do, like, let's say that we're building a custom page that has a pricing and a little shout out here, and then we're building a course page. We're going to make some Gutenberg courses, y'all. Okay. So we build that out. Now, some of that is metadata. Maybe the price is some metadata, maybe the category of the course and things like that, but it's still block data because we want it to be displayed with the content. So what we would do is we'd have a block that is our content, and we'd arrange it and lay it out in Gutenberg how we want. But when we save that data and enter in a price for something, or maybe pull a price in from somewhere else, all that could be saved on the back end as metadata in, meta fields and things, independently with the block. Now, you do get in some weird places, like if you're displaying the content and it's duplicate data, is this block really saving as part of the content, or is it what's called a dynamic block, where that block is actually empty in the database, and then when the page is loaded, actually with PHP, you're going to serve out that content fresh so that they get exactly what they need. So maybe that's kind of an approach of how you build it. But from the back end, dynamic blocks or normal block that's content and normal block that's updating metadata, they could all look pretty much the same and be the same user experience. So that's a really belated long answer, but I think that should hopefully help. And this is a really good question, because I think what we're going to be able to get to is not worried about this so much in the new version of WordPress. And we're just going to build our content, and we don't really care how it's saved on the back end. But plugin developers may want to think about some of these things I've hopefully outlined, and happy to follow up more. That question could go pretty deep. So, ping me sometime. I'd be happy to extend on that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, and I would love to definitely, I'm like kind of managing the questions back here, so I'm gonna watch this back probably later to get like the fully absorb that answer. Which is another good point, right? This I believe this should be like recorded and up on this YouTube channel once the recording is done. So
Whoop,
if
whoop.
anybody, yeah, if anybody wants to go back and watch it later, they can definitely do that. So um, our next question comes from Mike McAllister. Love the Gutenberg courses. Is it possible to reuse components like the image placeholder without rewriting those into a block? Is this covered in the course, right? So from a user standpoint, you can, I'm guessing this is probably a more programmer question. Like, can we abstract away the code for the block and kind of reuse it? From a user standpoint, there is something called reusable blocks for those curious, where you can create, let's say, an image block. If you have like your headshot that you want to use in multiple places on the site, you can create a headshot image block, make it reusable, and drop that anywhere in the Gutenberg editor across pages and posts and things like that. You can also change that on a global level, right? So if you make edits to it, it'll be changed once, and you change it once, and it'll be changed everywhere. You can also disconnect it, I think, or I forget the exact word, but you can essentially remove it from the reusable block, right? So you can just kind of make a copy of that block and make changes to just that block. So if you want to use a different image but still have all the same settings, you can do that. So that's from a user standpoint. In case, and I believe Mike is probably asking more about the developer standpoint, I will turn it over to Zach.
So the good answer is it's as easy on the back end as it is on the front end. Hoorah for
Mhm.
modern JavaScript and component architecture. So yes and yes. Yes, you could do that. You could literally say in your code, image component, and you just write, bracket image. If you've ever written React, and if you haven't, like, this course will show you how simple it is to write some JSX and stuff. So you basically just create an HTML element that's like image block, and it just works. It's all hooked up, and you can customize it and pass it some parameters. And a lot of what I outline in my course and a lot of the examples are like, okay, we want to build this custom block. How do we pull in this feature that's already used? How do we pull in this? Because they built it so smart. Like, you could go in, if you're looking in the Gutenberg source code and you go in and you click on the library into the library, it's under not components, blocks. You click on blocks and then into library, you could see all of the different components. Every single block that's in there, you could go and just like copy that code and bring it in. Now, sometimes those are kind of complex and there are some settings you do need to customize. So it is there. That's, I think, where my course can be helpful, because not every one of those is documented, but when WordPress uses it internally as a developer, you can kind of read the documentation, see how they use it, and do a lot of copying and pasting with JavaScript like you have not been able to do in WordPress before. And really, that's because they follow a React architecture, and React was built to work that way.
That is awesome. Man, just another reason to learn React. React is like one of those things that like I kind of held off trying to learn because I was like, who knows what JavaScript framework will be
Well,
available.
I'll announce it here first. A React for
Ooh,
WordPress course is going to be my next one.
let me let me throw you on the presenter so you can make this like exclusive announcement. All right.
Exclusive announcement. You heard it here first. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the next course I'm going to do, and I've already started kind of working on this, is going to be a React for WordPress course, which will kind of teach you React, but also through the WordPress architecture and how to use it. Now, unfortunately, that's locked down just within blocks now, but that'll expand and be able to be a lot more places as we go on. I'm excited. I'm excited. It's cool. Finally, once they decide it goes in core, then I can really teach around it in ways you can't before that.
Man, that is super excellent. Looking forward to that one, right? Because I mean, like a new JavaScript framework comes out like every other day. So like I'm glad that React is like the settled on technology.
Yeah, me too.
Uh, yeah. Cool. Marcel Bootsman asks, I hope I said all of that correctly. How about the WordPress ecosystem? Theme shops, plugin builders. Will Gutenberg introduce a new era of WordPress related services and products? Well, I mean, I don't know that it's a new era, but you're seeing it with Gutenberg courses, right? Like, uh, but I absolutely, I mean, I think yes, definitely from the plugin side, right? Because you're going to see people creating their own custom blocks that could be used in Gutenberg. Maybe they'll be like, I mean, if you use a page builder like Beaver Builder, you see that there's all of these. There's like a whole industry built around Beaver Builder specific themes, Beaver Builder specific plugins that add more modules to Beaver Builder. I think we'll see a lot of the same with Gutenberg. We'll see plugins that add just like a whole host of extra blocks. Maybe we'll see a way where people like extract out the blocks and make them widgets, or create areas within the templates, within the themes that are Gutenberg friendly, right? Which is probably the future of Gutenberg, right? I don't think that's a big secret. But maybe that will come sooner. And then on the theme side, at the very least, we're going to start seeing a lot more supports Gutenberg stamps, right? Because at present, you need to add custom styles for certain Gutenberg blocks, like the text columns and things like that. There's only basic styles, and that's a fairly specific HTML structure. So, as far as the themes go, we'll see a lot more full page templates. We'll see, supports Gutenberg blocks and things like that. That's my opinion. What about you, Zach?
Okay, so I'm going to first say that a lot of this is hype, and I'll try to explain technically why. And then I'm totally going to encourage the hype and say, yes, we got such a market right now. Go find your favorite plugin that is a shortcode or a widget and make it a Gutenberg block. And if you're into free software, release that thing for free in the .org repository ready with 5.0. And if you're into premium software, like, it might be hard to sell a subscription around a single block because somebody else may do it for free. But like that user block idea, user roles or something, $9, $39 plugin, I don't know, I'd buy that. So as a user. So I think that we definitely have a market to have a rehashing. There's a race right now, potentially. I don't know that people know that they're in it, but the established plugin manufacturers definitely know manufacturers that, and it's so funny because they call these folks the big guys or the big girls, they're all just people trying to make humble lives and do stuff that they love and have families and friends and, whatever. So they're not really like this corporate giant, but they're definitely aware that they need to get to market with Gutenberg or somebody else will. And the somebody else will is probably these people asking these questions. So the short answer is yes. Now the long answer is like widgets will probably work without changing too much how a widget works, although it might need to change a little bit to be a block. So yeah, some widgets you might see converted or people might, but also short codes already work. So some stuff like we're probably going to get by really well, folks. Like, again, they've designed this well with good fallback. So we could probably get by with some of these, but definitely we are going to see them. And I do laugh at the like Gutenberg ready because I've read things specifically that are like, there's no such thing as a Gutenberg ready theme. Like Gutenberg will work out of the box, but you're right that you can extend it a bit. You can customize it. One thing they definitely recommend is you're going to want, more templates that are full column width and not just like, a box layout is like this, but the actual browser is this big. Like you want it to extend to the whole browser width, because if you're doing a banner, like a hero with something inside, you need that option. So there are some things that you want to prepare for with themes, but I think it's going to be a quick default and it's not too much code to convert over. So saying I'm Gutenberg ready, while true, is also kind of like a silly technical thing. But yes to all of those. Go do it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those situations where like every place was like advertising like 4G or like just whatever, like one of those we accept Bitcoin, or like, just like one of those big tech trends, right? I was just listening to a podcast where like at CES, all of these smaller companies will like say like their new thing works with whatever the hotness is. So for a long time it was iPhone, now it's like Alexa and Google Home. We'll probably see a lot of that sort of like CES
Yes,
type stuff
exactly.
too, right?
Exactly.
Just to build on something Zach said, though, if you are a theme developer, you are going to want to make sure that, like, for example, the cover image, right? Like most themes that I've been working with now, except for the one that I recommend in my course, go check it out to see what theme I recommend. Um, certain themes do. I've seen like the cover image is confined to just the content area. That's not a very good cover image for like a million reasons. One is it doesn't go across the whole way, which is what you would expect from a from a cover image, and the other is like you've got padding around it because it's an image, or maybe it's a div or something that already has styles associated with it. So like paragraphs, like the paragraph and heading blocks, the list blocks, the image blocks, and the gallery blocks, like those will probably be fine, right? Because they're using the current standard HTML markup that your theme probably includes styles for. But the cover image, the text columns, um, and some of the more custom, like the cool kind of custom layouts that you might get with Gutenberg, will not be styled, and those are definitely things to think about.
Yeah.
Um,
Joe, I'll
oh
just say,
yeah.
don't switch me over. I'm just going to talk over your beautiful face here. That
Oh, thanks.
one of those technical
I
things.
don't know if people can hear you if you just talk over my face though. So
Oh,
I'll have to,
yeah.
yeah, I'll switch you over. Yeah.
I hope you all are enjoying watching us learn all of this stuff live on TV here. Okay, so this is the thing I'll throw out technically, that it's called align wide, and there are ways to detect like if align wide support is enabled in your theme. Like there's an add theme support Gutenberg, and then specific things that you can enable, and then you're going to get different controls within Gutenberg depending on if that's enabled. So I think that it's even possible to prevent the option from showing the cover image a certain way with the wrong theme, and I might be wrong there, but I remember playing around a little bit with that. There's something to it, and I've done a little work with align wide and setting it up. So you do have to do what we're saying in terms of setting up themes for that kind of stuff. Good point.
Man, that's oh man, that is very cool. I have to click the stop presenting for Zac twice every time. To Zac's point, like you would think that it would be a lot easier for just two people to talk on a hangout. Like I shouldn't be able to throw the camera. To each of us each time. Um, so we that is there are no more questions that have come in. I'm just gonna check Twitter real quick, but while I do that, and Zac, if you want to check your feed too in the meantime, I am going to mention that our sponsor for this Q&A and all of the
Woohoo!
Q&As is Give. Give WP. Give is a WordPress donation plugin that allows you to easily accept donations on your WordPress site. It is a free plugin, which is crazy. They've got premium add-ons. They are an incredible, like I can't speak highly enough of the team at Give. I had the opportunity to like interview them on my podcast, and they're just like a great group of developers that care so much about like support and empowering people and like all of those things that the WordPress community is about is embodied in Give. So definitely check out the Give plugin for WordPress. Again, it is like it's free if you just want to like accept PayPal donations. It is running on Gutenberg.courses/ask us, where you probably join the mailing list to get notifications for these things. So if you want to see how it works from an end user standpoint, go to that page and just leave a donation for us. And then you could see how it works for other users. This is really about education here, but it is the camera's hanging on Zac. Like, do people hear me?
Oh,
Oh, the camera's hanging, but I think can you guys still hear me? Or am I just like gushing about am, am I just gushing about Give to Zac?
we should really figure this out. We could hop on Wirecast next time. We'll up our game here, folks. Sorry about
Yeah.
staring at me watching the Twitter feed here and Joe's talking
Right,
away.
and I'm talking and they can hear me. They can hear both of us now, which is cool. That's just hanging out on you, Zac.
Can they see me now? Am I up? Camera 1, camera 2? Does switching this do anything, or is that just my screen? I don't know.
Yeah, like I don't know, right? That's like this looks very differently from like the last time I tested it. But anyway, I do want to say thanks so much to Give WP because they are super awesome. Once again, kind of go ahead and check them out because they are um they're really involved in the community, and we really appreciate their support because thanks to their support, these events are free for people to come just ask their Gutenberg questions. So once again, thanks to Give WP or Give. It's like officially Give, but they're Give WP on Twitter
Yeah.
if you want to follow them. I believe we've got a couple of Give folks here in the chat. I at least saw Ben before.
Okay.
So
Kick it over to
yeah,
me, man, because I need to talk about Give for a second. I know we're going to get back
yeah.
during everybody's questions here, but let me just say that Give is some good folks personally. Again, like we said, all these folks out there building WordPress plugins and getting everything Gutenberg ready, which Give is and will be. Great folks doing great work. And basically anytime you want to offer a donation and you're building client sites, and this should also encourage you, if you have WordPress skills, you can knock out a quick theme for some charity or somebody looking to get some help, Upstarter. Maybe they're trying to support a passion. Maybe it's somebody who you think, man, you have a great skill if you got a little something out there and just had a little donation. And it's not always just the money that people get. It's the energy behind it, right? So when you give a little bit, you set up a site for somebody and it has that, like they're getting some good feedback. Again, like we threw it up on our site mostly to show off and because we want to be using Give and throw it up and it's going to go to, Joe's baby college fund. We're not exactly trying to get rich off of this stuff. So, but yeah, there's a good exchange there. So I just want to say it's the plugin for this sort of thing. You don't set up WooCommerce to accept a donation, and it has some customizations and free and premium stuff that's super cool. So I'm not saying give to us, but I'm saying, maybe help somebody out and build a site that uses Give, above and beyond what you're normally doing. I know you're busy. I know.
Yeah, without a doubt. Man, it's great. I mean, I'm on I have a Patreon. And it would be really nice if once I build the audience, I can move off Patreon and use Give instead, because the big benefit of Give is that they're not taking a little bit off the top, right? Yeah, so it's excellent.
WordPress is about the people, y'all.
That's right. WordPress is about the people.
Okay, what do you say? Are we feeling Give good? A shout out to all the Give folks in the crowd. Hope you're feeling good about yourselves. Good work you're doing.
Yeah, feeling great about all of that. James in the chat mentioned that it might be Ben's birthday. Wink, wink. So happy birthday,
That's
Ben.
Right. Happy birthday. Everybody send tweets to Ben at Give. It's his birthday today. We're so happy. Just had one recently at WordCamp US. So congrats on the next one.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Ben UNC. I think that's what he is on Twitter. So definitely wish him a happy birthday.
All right. We got to get back to the. Do we have more questions today, or did we do that?
We did it all. That's all the questions that we have today. If anybody has any more questions about Gutenberg from a user standpoint, from a developer standpoint, or from a hey, how do I train my clients on this standpoint, we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks or so for the foreseeable future. I'll take a week off. I'm going to Disney World with my daughter for the first time, my wife and my daughter. Yeah, so that'll be fun. But aside from that, we'll be doing this for the foreseeable future. So if you joined from a link on Twitter or something like that, go to gutenberg.courses/askus, sign up, and you will get emails 3 days before and then the day of, just to remind you that they're coming. All of the dates are also in this description and on that page. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Thanks again to Give for sponsoring this. I'm going to throw it over to Zac to close us out. Sound good? Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed this. Thanks for the folks who came out and asked some questions. Hopefully the feedback was helpful. Hopefully you just enjoyed more people talking about Gutenberg, telling you it's going to be okay and things are going to be all right. Like Joe said, we're here to answer questions. I'm really excited. So go out, take our courses. If you're a user and you got to do that, go take Joe's. If you're a developer and you have questions and you haven't taken my course yet, go take that course first for sure, and then ask your questions, because there's still more to be asked and stuff going on. So yeah, Gutenberg.courses is the site. If you're not following Joe or I on Twitter, I'm Z Gordon. I believe Jay Casabona, correct? Casabona?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
So pick it up there and reach out. We're both in the WordPress Slack and we're both on Twitter. And if you have questions that just kind of come up, ping us. We'd probably be happy to help you on the fly. And if not, we might, well, I don't know, we'd probably just be willing to help anyways. But if you wanted to save it, we also on our Ask Us site, if you have a question and you're just building or going along and you think of it, go over to Ask Us and submit that form and we'll get that question and we'll just make sure that it goes in the queue for next time, right? So even if you're already subscribed, if you think of something, don't think you have to wait till next time. We'll go out and do that. And these will be recorded too. So hopefully share them around. If you're watching this and we're not live, please reach out and if you have questions or things like that or updates.
All right, cool. Take us home, Zach. I'm going to stop the broadcast in 5, 4, 3,
Go get it,
2,
y'all. Keep on learning.
1.
Have fun.